again, everyone. I just want to take a minute to introduce our speaker, although many of you know him. Matt received his master's degree in divinity from McCormick Theological Seminary and his undergraduate degree from the University of Wisconsin, my alma mater. He is associate pastor for children and family ministry and oversees the work of Fourth Church's Adult Education Council. See, I knew I had written that down. So at any rate, we're pleased to have him here, and we're pleased to see all of you, and hope you enjoy it. And with that, I'll turn it over to Matt. Okay.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's good to be with you all in a little bit different of a capacity than I normally am. I know I recognize many of you from Bible studies on Sunday morning and otherwise. But when I'm not at my day job, one of the things that is a deep passion for me, as those of you who I recognize many from the CLL lectures that I've done on the Oscars as well, one of my deep passions is watching movies. Now, not all of them are Oscar movies, to be fair. But I grew up in a house that really loved the Oscars. We would get together with my extended family, even when I was a little kid, we'd all watch the ceremony together. And 24 years ago, we started a competition about picking all of the Oscar categories, from Best Picture all the way down to the technicals, to see who could get the most right. And so we've been doing that now for 24 years. We have a traveling trophy that goes around to whoever the winner is, and it's been a great thing. I'm proud to say that last year had a very good year. I only missed 3 of the out of all the categories. Unfortunately for me, my mom only missed 2. So the trophy does not reside at my house this year, but there's always hope for this year. In any case, one of the things that I just really appreciate about sort of making a commitment to seeing all the different Oscar movies is that it invites me to see movies that I would probably never seek out on my own in some cases. And at times I have discovered movies that I have truly loved. I think back a couple years ago to Past Lives. I never would have made time for that movie, and yet watched it and really thought that it was wonderful, and would lift up that for a few of these as well this year. We won't be talking about any of these tonight. These are some other movies that really, I thought, stood out from the year, many of which will be competing in various categories. I won't go into depth on any of them tonight, but you'll have Rose Byrne, If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, a serious Oscar contender for Best Actress, and we'll kind of get into that race a little bit. It Was Just an Accident, an Iranian film that has a lot of political punch and power, won the Palme d'Or at Cannes this year and looked to be almost a lock for Best International Film, only to see over the past month its stars start to fade a little bit. But nonetheless, it was certainly a powerful film. I don't know if anyone saw K-pop Demon Hunters here, but all right, Nanette has. That's excellent. My son had a K-pop Demon Hunters themed birthday party. That's how into it we were at my house. So almost a lock for Best Animated Film as well as Best Original Song. And so if you haven't heard Golden, wherever you listen to music, I think it's already up to 1.5 billion listens in less than a year, which is pretty incredible. Sorry Baby, another really interesting, thoughtful movie. And then I'll lift up, it's not up for any Oscars, but I liked it, so I wanted to put it on here. And the last one, Weapons. If you don't like horror movies, this is not the movie for you. However, Amy Madigan, who plays the villain Gladys, is a strong contender for Best Supporting Actress in what I think is the most interesting race on Oscar night. So we'll come back to that one as well. But zooming out to the big picture before we start looking at some of the movies, getting a little bit deeper into the details of the 10 Best Picture nominees, one of the really interesting storylines for me is that over and basically since the Academy started to really expand their pool of voters in the wake of Oscars So White and that whole campaign, the Academy has continued to add tons and tons of voters into the mix. And the tastes have generally tended to highlight low-budget, independent films, which has been a really interesting shift from what has been in the past. You saw this in a huge way last year as Anora swept things unexpectedly. I'm Still Here upset Amelia Perez for Best International Film, thank goodness. And then Flow upset, you see right there, it cost under $4 million to make. Flow won for Best Animated Feature over The Wild Robot, which was $100 million. These like David and Goliath upsets, there really seemed to be this strong surge, with the exception of Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer a couple years back, this taste for indie movies. And yet, look at our slate this year and the most nominated movies. I don't know if this is a wider shift that studios are trying to get into, but many of the biggest and kind of most powerful studios today, from your Netflixes to your Warner Brothers and others, the most nominated movies generally tended to come from major studios, which represents a really sharp break. The only real exception is Sentimental Value, and we'll talk about that one a little bit. But I'm expecting a lot of major studios to be walking away from Oscar night with a lot of hardware, and that'll be an interesting dynamic going forward for the Oscars, because I tend to love those smaller budget independent movies. But one of the other really interesting things getting into Oscars night, and we've seen this really start to be the case over the last couple of years, is that whenever you have what I would describe as 50-50 categories, whether it's, last year was Best Actress, arguably that wasn't even a 50-50. It was widely assumed that Demi Moore was going to win Best Actress. She won almost every precursor award leading up to the ceremony, only to be upset by Mikey Madison, who was the actress in the Best Picture that year. And we seem to be getting into this habit where whatever film wins Best Picture is almost snowballing through any other category that they're in. And that'll be another really interesting dynamic in trying to unpack this race. But with all of that, I would love to spend our time getting to know all 10 of these Best Picture nominees. For those who have been in the CLL lectures before, we'll have an opportunity both to see a short clip from that and things that I would highlight about it, as well as taking stock of all the various places that it is nominated for, where it falls in the state of the race. So we'll begin with a movie, Begonia. Has anyone here seen Begonia? All right, one person. All right, excellent. This one is, if you've ever seen a Yorgos Lanthimos movie, best known from The Favorite a handful of years ago. Absolutely loved that movie. Most recently, I believe, was Poor Things. One of the things that he is interested in as a director is unequal power dynamics, but specifically where the person who is sort of being controlled is much smarter than the person who is the controller. And we have that dynamic playing out in Begonia. Begonia tells the story of a conspiracy theorist, played by Jesse Plemons, who becomes convinced that a pharmaceutical CEO, played by Emma Stone, is actually an alien here to subjugate the human race, and teams up with his cousin to kidnap her. And things go from there. It's a highly strange, highly intriguing movie, and we'll watch just a small clip. I do want to say from the outset, there is a language warning. I assume we're all adults here, but just wanted to let you know that is a part of this. So we'll watch this from Begonia, a clip that I think highlights well some of the dynamics in the movie.
Dialogue, please. Don't call it dialogue. This isn't Death of a Salesman.
Okay, can we talk, please? Or are you just going to
We
keep
don't
doing
need to talk.
Yes, okay.
Because I know exactly what you're going to say. You're going to say that I'm in some kind of internet-induced, auto-hypnotic feedback loop and gatekeepers and norms and all that weak hegemonic horseshit. But that is precisely the limp dick rhetoric that you've been instructed to counter the human insurgency with. That's the fucking hyper-normalized dialectic by which you've convinced 7.5 billion people that they're not your captives. To keep us believing in these fucking false institutional fucking shibboleths.
You mean shibboleths?
That's what I said.
You said,
Yeah, whatever.
sorry.
So it's a small scene, but gets at a much larger dynamic in which Emma Stone is always just slyly undermining him, and that tension is building throughout the movie. Begonia is really built on the performances of Emma Stone, who is nominated, and Jesse Plemons, who unfortunately was not. One of my favorite roles of the year, and unfortunately didn't get a nomination for the Oscars. He was nominated for the Screen Actors Guild, though. But really, much of the movie is built off their conversations with one another. As with any Yorgos Lanthimos movie, the film is just absolutely bursting with big ideas. One of my main criticisms is that there are so many that they aren't fully baked, as it were. But it does not detract from how fun of a ride it is in this movie, even if I left the movie feeling a little cold. The way I kept reviewing it to people who asked when I'd seen it, said, I don't know that I loved the movie, but I love that it exists. I love the creative risks and the level of thought and care that went into it. Really good, as always, with sort of making these sort of contrasts between our characters, both through cutscenes and otherwise. It's an interesting movie. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be walking away with any hardware on Oscar night. The only thing I listed as an outside chance was Emma Stone for actress, because the Academy loves Emma Stone. She sometimes wins unexpectedly. So there's an outside chance that she would win. She was so committed to the part, she actually did have her hair shaved in one take, which is incredible. But in all likelihood, it was an honor for Begonia to be nominated, and that's the most we'll see from it. Next, we're going to get into F1, arguably the most surprising of the Oscar nominees that was released with the Best Picture. Covers Brad Pitt, who plays Sonny Hayes, a veteran driver who was recruited back to F1 after a violent flameout, trying to lead a rookie team to not getting kicked out of F1. So part of what I want you to watch in this is the amount of cuts and stitching together. We'll be talking about the movie's editing, and take a look at how many different cameras and all of the different things that went into constructing this scene. Oh, and then we have ads. That's not good. Ignore this ad, please. There we go. All right, so we've got 3 different cameras to date. 4, 5, 6. Maybe 7. I think that's 8, depending on the positioning. All right. All right, so the reason why I'm counting cameras is getting into what really I think is one of the strengths of the movie. And if you watch this and you feel like it reminds you of Top Gun Maverick from a few years ago with all the quick cuts, the exact same director, it is a really, really well-crafted movie, and editing is often described as one of the sort of hidden sciences. But if you notice, all that went into 8 different cameras being stitched together, understanding what is going on, both establishing shots, personalized shots within the car, sort of the visceral feel of the engine, all of that gets stitched together through that editing process of just hours and hours of film. It's a really technically well-done movie. The movie does hinge on Brad Pitt being a movie star, which he is, and certainly carries the movie in that respect. It is long. That was my main criticism. Is as you can see, the racing is exciting. There's a lot of racing, but that's okay. If you are a racing aficionado, there is much to take away from this movie. I do think that F1, it is a movie built on the roar of sound. I unfortunately did not get to see this at the theater, but I waited until my family was out for the night so I could turn up the volume on my speakers downstairs. So that was enjoyable, at least. I'll be curious about visual effects for the movie. In all likelihood, Avatar will be the runaway winner on visual effects, although there does not seem to be a whole lot of love out there for this third Avatar movie, and so if it's not getting viewed very much, there's a chance that F1 could slip into its place. And editing is a category that has traditionally been in pretty close lockstep with the movie that wins Best Picture. However, as I just said, there's a lot to be said for this movie's editing, and some of the others aren't quite as flashy with theirs. And so I'm keeping an eye on that in some of the precursor run-up award shows about whether or not that gets recognized. All right. Next, and I believe we have another ad on this one as well. I apologize. This is the only way to get free clips, I'm afraid, but I will. All right. Again. Oh, we have to watch the whole thing. Well, I'm sorry. All right. Interesting contrast between these two ads, I'll say that much. All right. So this is Frankenstein, a Guillermo del Toro remake of obviously a classic movie. Guillermo del Toro, if you're familiar with the name, he won for Shape of Water years back. I know him best and love him best for Pan's Labyrinth. There's our creature. It's very oversaturated visuals in terms of color palette. All right. It's alive. So Frankenstein, one of the things that it will be in contention for on Oscar night, as you saw, a very damp production in this particular scene, but the overall production design, the sort of gritty realism of it, which is very much a Del Toro staple, I think is really well done. You can see the budget being put to use in these gigantic sets and all these other sorts of things that were put together. And I walked into this movie, I will admit, sometimes I go into movies with biases, and I had zero interest in seeing this movie. I actually walked away more impressed than I thought it would. They add a whole second act focused on the creature, played by Jacob Elordi, that I actually found quite interesting, and I thought it expanded the story in really thoughtful ways. Oscar Isaac, on the other hand, who I adore, is a little bit over the top, as you saw from his wild eyes and the running around. It was a little much for me, but the overall, for the movie, it walked away with way more nominations than I would have expected. It's probably not a serious contender in many, but I think that it does have a good chance to sort of run the table with much of the production design. From costuming, although it'll be in close contention with Hamnet, which we'll be getting to next, the overall production design, and then makeup, the transformation of creating Frankenstein, sort of those realistic effects. I think there's a good chance that it walks away with all three on Oscar night, although the Academy does love a good period piece, which this is. But there is also another period piece competing with it, and that is Hamnet. So Hamnet is probably best known for being a novel prior to it being a movie. And actually, the writer of Hamnet worked in the screenplay process and adapting it to the screen, which I think works very well. It's a tearjerker for those of you who have seen it, but we'll go ahead and just watch a small clip from it here.
What do you see?
I see you grown, very strong. And I see you in London working with your father.
In the theatre?
At the Playhouse.
What will I be doing?
What do you wish to do, Hamlet?
I should be one of the players with a sword.
Sword?
Yes. And I shall cast it against the sword of the other player.
Show me.
There'll be a terrible fight, and everybody watching will be frightened out of their wits.
Who will win?
I shall, of course.
Of course you shall.
All right. So I won't say too much about what is to come. The camera often is tight in the way that you saw a little bit in that scene, although with Hamnet, the little boy, it does tend to zoom out a little bit. Jessie Buckley, who plays Hamnet's mother, is given a real opportunity to star and to shine, and she will almost certainly be taking home Best Actress on Oscar night for her performance. The movie is uneven to a little degree, but that might just be me talking. But the final sequence when they are in the theater was as affecting a sort of sequence as I've had in the movies over the past year. Really, really powerful. I was in, I wouldn't say a crowded theater, a moderately full theater, but it felt like you could hear a pin drop during that whole sequence. And so it's a movie that is meant to really get at your heart, and I think it does a good job with that. As I mentioned, Jessie Buckley in her role is almost certainly gonna take home the actress prize. It'll be really interesting to look at between Frankenstein and Hamnet for costuming, and I do think it has a decent chance at adapted screenplay as well. Unfortunately, it's competing directly against the presumptive frontrunner for Best Picture, One Battle After Another, which was adapted as well. But having this come from a very well-known book, having it involve the author in the adaptation, we'll be very curious to see if and how the screenplay ends up being honored in some of the events leading up to Oscar night. So Hamnet is certainly a potent and powerful movie, and we'll get into another one that is visceral in a very different way, the stress of Marty Supreme, for those who have seen it. I think we have an ad. Unfortunately, pay no attention to the ad. All right.
But only one way to start.
All right. And this is not a stressful scene, by the way. This one's just fun. So I guess I should say, Marty Supreme is about Timothy Chalamet plays Marty Mauser, a brash, broke, very bold table tennis player whose desire is to be the absolute best in the world at any cost. So you have some of these interesting orchestral choices here. All right. The reason why I want to show this, he's saying, let's have a little bit of fun. He is, at his core, magnetic and unlikable at the same time. He's a showman that you can't look away from, and yet he's not a nice guy. And that's part of the dynamic that fuels the entire movie, is that people can't stay away from him, and yet. All right. It's not loved in the wider table tennis world. All right. And then, match point. All right. So if you have ever seen one of the Safdie brothers movies, most recently Uncut Gems would have been a well-known one with Adam Sandler, or going back to Robert Pattinson in Good Time. They make primarily movies around very driven, unlikable people, and they make very stressful movies. This one is certainly no exception. Marty's quest to be the best takes him on a terrible downward spiral that just keeps deepening and deepening. But it is at the same time also this thrilling undercurrent of how far he will go in order to pursue his dream. Timothy Chalamet does a great job of being, as I say, both magnetic and also unlikable at the same time. His performance for Best Actor is probably the front runner at this point, although that will be an interesting one with Leo DiCaprio, which we'll talk about in a second. The movie itself, it really is a vehicle about Marty Mauser and the characters on the side, particularly Gwyneth Paltrow's character, and I'm blanking on the actress's name, but the person who plays Rachel in the film. They were really underdeveloped, and I didn't care for that aspect of it. But overall, it's a fun thrill ride if you're signing up for a couple hours of stress, if that's what you're looking for on your Friday night. It's worth a ride. So, that is Marty Supreme. I expect Timothy Chalamet to win his first Oscar. He's been circling it for some time. It feels like the time is now. One of the categories I missed last year was picking him at the last second because he won at the Screen Actors Guild over Adrian Brody. And I really regret that because I would have taken home the plate for the traveling trophy. But in any case, it's another category. I'll be watching all the precursor awards, but I do expect that Timothy Chalamet will win. It'll also be interesting. I said in the running for screenplay, Sinners probably has the inside track on original screenplay, and people have been celebrating its originality for quite some time now. But I'll be curious if that ends up winning any awards on the build-up to the Oscars as well. All right. Now for One Battle After Another. This is the presumptive frontrunner for Best Picture at the moment. That doesn't mean that it's a lock. We've seen presumptive frontrunners kind of fall apart a little bit before. But this movie is directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, who's one of sort of seen as the great directors working today. If you're familiar with The Master, There Will Be Blood, going back way deep to Magnolia or Boogie Nights, he has an incredible collection of films that are really well regarded, but has never been honored as Best Director or had a film win. And so there's a sense in which he's due for whatever that's worth. If you're looking for a parallel to make with the candidacy, it would be similar to Christopher Nolan sort of sweeping through with Oppenheimer a few years back. But I've said too much about the people behind it. The story itself follows a couple different generations of revolutionaries pushing back against immigration in ways that feel very speaking to the current moment. Leonardo DiCaprio both plays his younger self, sort of idealistic version, as well as a total burnout in the present day, trying to help his daughter as well. And so we'll see just a little clip from that shows some of his foibles.
Rise and shine.
Hi. What's up? What's up, homie? It's me again, Bob Ferguson. I don't know if you remember, but we spoke earlier on the phone. I think we had a little misunderstanding. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I was trying to get the rendezvous point for my daughter,
Right.
Willa.
If you can't answer what time is it, I cannot give you the rendezvous point. This is a key tenet of the rebellion. I'm surprised you can't name it. I don't know if you are who you say you are.
Okay. Well, look, maybe I can give you some information, and then you give me some information. All right, we'll just share a little information. My name is Bob Ferguson. I don't know if you've ever heard of me. All right, I was a part of French 75 for years and years. All right, they used to call me Ghetto Pat, Rocket Man, stuff like that. Only problem is I fried my brain since then, man. I have abused drugs and alcohol for the past 30 years, man. I'm a drug and alcohol lover, and I cannot remember for the life of me or the life of my only child the answer to your question, what time is it?
8:15.
Now, I need this rendezvous point. You understand what I'm saying? I need it.
I understand. And the question is, what time is it?
If you don't give me the rendezvous point, I swear to God, I will hunt you down and stick a loaded hot piece of dynamite right up your...
They were kind enough to bleep that one at least. That was good. So again, stressful as a theme. But One Battle After Another, it's a really, at minimum, even if you walk away not liking the movie, it is a very interesting movie in that it is a gigantic mashup of different styles, everything from satire and action, some like dark comedy. There is a lot going on in this movie. I don't know that it will be looked back on as Paul Thomas Anderson's best movie, but it certainly is one that gives you a lot to chew on, both from interesting characters. You see down there, Sean Penn is in the Best Supporting Actor category, along with Benicio del Toro, who had a very limited role in that clip. Sean Penn plays Colonel Lockjaw, what a name, who is sort of the immigration enforcement officer who ends up sort of pursuing them and their family over the course of a couple decades. It's an interesting movie. It's certainly divisive as well, but most people fall on the side of really enjoying it. In terms of where we are in the race today, and this is a really interesting one. Again, I want to couch all this by saying this is the state of the race as it is today, watching a lot of different precursor awards. The Directors Guild is tomorrow. Got the Producers Guild, the BAFTAs, the SAG Awards. There's a lot still on the horizon that are data points to how we understand this race. But as of right now, belief that it will win Best Picture and Director. As I mentioned before, adapted screenplay it seems to be a strong contender for. And then editing as well is often very closely associated with Best Picture. Although it is a long movie, and that has been punished in the past when it comes to editing Oscars. I will be curious, as I mentioned before, that snowball effect of when there's sort of a runaway Best Picture, it sometimes starts to get, when you have quote-unquote upsets in categories. I have my eye on Leonardo DiCaprio upsetting Timothée Chalamet. Timothée Chalamet has been winning all of the precursor awards to date. It looks pretty solid. However, if there's a lot of passion for One Battle, that could end up tipping the tides. It's always tough when you have two actors from the same movie within a category. And so to some degree, Sean Penn and Benicio del Toro, their support may be split and they may not ultimately be able to take it home, but certainly memorable roles. The mysterious new Oscar, who here knew there was a new Oscar category called Best Casting? All right. Huh, indeed. So instituted for the first time this year, not only because it's the first time, no one knows exactly what everyone's judging this on. Is it discovering new talent? Is it casting famous movie stars? This certain je ne sais quoi of getting just the right person for the part. How does one vote on that? I'll be really fascinated to see what comes of this new category and how that evolves going forward. And then it'll also sort of be in the running for cinematography as well. The score, it was a really aggressive and very omnipresent score that I didn't care for, but seemingly other people did, so that's fine. So that is One Battle After Another. This is The Secret Agent. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to start it, but away we go. So, no, I'm so sorry. I'm going to pause this. So The Secret Agent is in close competition for Best International Film. It was probably one of the latest risers in this movie cycle. Set in 1977 in Brazil as a military dictatorship began to take over. If that's sounding familiar, the movie that won last year for Best International Film was I'm Still Here, a movie set in 1977 in Brazil during a military dictatorship takeover. Having said that, despite those broad brushstrokes, this movie could not be more different than I'm Still Here in ways that are both quirky and I found confusing at times, but very, it marches to the beat of its own drum. So you see this almost like, it is very much in the style of like 70s film I'm blanking on the name of the style, but yeah, it was an intriguing movie. Occasionally for these newest releases, I had to rely on trailers rather than actual clips from the movie. But
Eu não sou uma pessoa violenta. Mas esse cara, eu matava ele com martelo.
all right. So, important to know if you make time to see this movie, he's not a secret agent. I didn't realize that until about 50 to 60 minutes into the film because it's not spelled out at all, and it actually like affected the way that I was viewing the movie. I would love to know why they called it The Secret Agent. But in any case, it is unapologetically its own in terms of style. There is everything from a recurring symbol of a hairy leg that goes around and kicks things and people. It's a strange film, and yet its tone and sort of sarcastic is the wrong word. It's almost like a playful jab looking at this dictatorship. It refers to 1977 as a time of much mischief. It's a very interesting take on sort of undercutting this aggressive political power. Having said that, of all the 10 movies, this was probably my least favorite of the cycle, but it certainly has its lovers out there. Along with Sentimental Value, which we'll be talking about in just a second, it is probably those are the two primary contenders for international film, and I'll be very interested to see how well it's received. Wagner Moura, who plays the title character, he is been receiving a lot more precursor awards than I would have expected, and so I have my eye on him as like a late surge for actor. But I think compared to the star power of Timothée Chalamet and Leonardo DiCaprio, probably not. We'll get into Sentimental Value. This is the only one I couldn't embed a clip of, and so I apologize. I'm going to quickly exit out so that I can play a video. Fred, is this going to be an issue? Hopefully we can connect. Maybe I shouldn't have done this. All right. Okay. I might just try to go right back into it, and I'll describe what happens in the scene. Apologies, everyone. And I promise I will have time for questions at the end of all this. I know we're racing through. There's a lot of ground to cover. All right. So in Sentimental Value, a film out of Norway, and again, probably a competitor for Best International Film. I'm not going to pronounce her name right. Renate Rensve. Sorry to the Norwegians out there. Please pronounce. Rensve, thank you. She plays the central character who is an actress with a famous but distant director father played by Stellan Skarsgård, who returns after years of distance asking her to play an important role in his new movie, and she turns him down. There are, again, these issues of kind of power dynamics and broken relationships, but he ends up casting a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed American played by Elle Fanning to be her replacement, and she has lingering resentment underneath the rest of the movie about this. It is a movie that is about family dynamics. It's so beautifully written and very well acted, so much so that actually 4 actors were nominated from this movie, which I would need to go back and check, but is really high for an international film, especially one that's spoken almost entirely in Norwegian or Danish. So it's really impressive in that respect. I'm going to go ahead and get this full size. Sorry, there we go. Oh boy. I'm struggling over here, folks. I apologize. All right. Here we go. So, as I said, it is a very, very well-acted movie, but a very thoughtful movie as well. If you are in the mood for sort of a traditional Oscar drama, this is the movie for you. Stellan Skarsgård is right now the front runner for Best Supporting Actor. Again, as with all things with the Oscars and category fraud, there have been accusations of category fraud in that he is throughout the entire movie. So how is he a supporting actor? Hamnet got into some trouble for this as well. Paul Mescal, who plays Shakespeare, was also nominated, or was tried to be nominated for Best Supporting Actor, even though he's in the entire movie. people mess around with these categories all the time, but as of right now, Stellan Skarsgård is the front runner for that. But it's also a really interesting movie reflecting on the sort of inherent selfishness of creating art, but also the public good that it brings into the world. And so Stellan Skarsgård's passion for creating these movies has created this distance in his family, and yet it has touched thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions. And so these broken family dynamics and his own lingering trauma from his own relationship with his mother, it's a very complex film that I think is really well done. So I do expect it to win International Film over Secret Agent, and I do think, based off the split between Sean Penn and Benicio del Toro, that it will win Supporting Actor as well. All right. I believe we have just a few movies to go, and then we're gonna put a bow on all of this. We are going to talk next about Sinners, notably the most nominated movie in Oscars history, which is pretty incredible. It is another genre-bending mashup, this time into the often underlooked category of horror. And so we'll talk about that interesting choice in a second. But what really makes this movie sing is the music. This is a movie built around music, and we'll try to do just a little of that here. This is his first acting role ever. Amazing. And yes, that is Michael B. Jordan playing two different people. Twins, he's playing himself, yes. All right. This is where the movie gets into these interesting mashup of styles. It's set in the Mississippi Delta, kind of near the 1930? I'm trying to remember the exact time frame. But mashes up with all these different generations of music. The interlopers in the movie are Irish and bring sort of an Irish music flair to it all. There's a lot of different musical cues and things that are all layered on top of one another in the movie. So we'll keep going on this. What makes Sinners so interesting, it's set around Michael B. Jordan's character Smoke and Stack, two twins who were gangsters with Al Capone, who come down to the Mississippi Delta to open their own blues club, only to be met with resistance from the Klan, and then soon enough, Irish vampires. If you didn't see that coming, not many people do in the movie, but It is a incredibly creative movie. This whole kind of theme of different communities that have been pushed to the margins and sort of this mashup of Irish culture with African-American culture. There's a lot of really interesting ideas that are all swirling around in the movie. I'm fascinated. Horror has long been one of the most overlooked genres at the Academy Awards. So to have it become one of the most nominated movie is a fascinating one. Having said that, I'll be curious to see right now, it is probably often the second place runner-up to a lot of different things. And I'll be really curious what it ends up taking away. Being the most nominated movie has not always been a good thing when it comes to the Oscars. Most famously from La La Land, if you remember that shocking upset, La La Land went in by far and away the most nominated movie and walked away quite empty-handed for what it was expecting to take. I'll be curious to see how that bears out for Sinners. I do think the originality of the movie will bear well for its screenplay. Some of the shots, although cinematography will be a really interesting one again with our last movie we're going to be talking about, Train Dreams. The movie is built on music, and so the score, I think, will win as well. And then the casting as well is sort of a toss-up, but again, we have established movie stars like Michael B. Jordan. You have folks like Miles Caton in his first role ever. It seems like it spans actors who weren't expected to be nominated, and Wunmi Musako and, oh my gosh, what's his name? Delroy Lindo. They received unexpected nominations as well. It seems like the overall cast has gotten a lot of recognition in a way that points to Sinners as the most likely winner. And then picture and director is one to keep an eye on as we head into this next month. All right, with that, we are on to our last movie, I will say my favorite movie of this cycle, and that is Train Dreams. Unfortunately, can only be seen on Netflix, so you'd need to have Netflix in order to see it. Or apparently the CLL showed it, which is wonderful. But Train Dreams is one where I could not get a clip, so you'll instead have to enjoy this trailer. And shot almost entirely using natural light, which is amazing.
And even though that old world is gone, you can still feel the echo of it. We just cut down trees that have been here for 500 years. Every thread we pull affects the design of things. Don't you think it's too much? What if you got nothing left to give?
Don't worry. You'll find a way.
All right. So again, I wish I had a clip from it, but it's adapted from a Dennis Johnson novel, and I was so enamored by the movie, I went back and read the Dennis Johnson novel, and they're quite different, which is interesting for the adaptation. It follows the life of Robert Grenier, a logger towards the very tail end of the 1800s into kind of the middle of the 20th century. Things like this are why I love the Oscars. If you had told me to go see a movie about a logger in the 1800s, I would have said, yeah, okay, nope. And yet, I walked away from this movie absolutely floored with its thoughtfulness, with its beauty, and it just is it was a really affecting story in a way that I did not expect it to be. And so it was one that I'm certainly will be cheering for on Oscar night, while also acknowledging it's probably not going to win anything. The one thing that it does have an outside chance at is cinematography. And I will say the cinematography in the setting of the Pacific Northwest is shot beautifully. But if you're watching the Oscars on March 15th and you hear Train Dreams win cinematography, you'll know I'll be pumping my fist at home. I'm very excited about that. But so, all right, as we wrap up, these are our 10 Best Picture nominees, and I'm looking forward to taking questions from all of you. These are my initial predictions, and I put asterisks by the ones that I am keeping an eye on. Some of the precursor awards are. I do think the overall narrative of it's Paul Thomas Anderson's time to win, both for director as well as for picture, is ultimately going to carry the day over Sinners. Although it should be said that Ryan Coogler, who directed Sinners, has certainly been someone who is deserving in his own right, and has produced both blockbusters and Black Panther and Creed, as well as smaller films like Fruitvale Station. Again, he's been circling it for a while. Timothée Chalamet, I do think, is not a lock yet, but nearing lock for Best Actor for his portrayal as Marty Mauser. Jesse Buckley really carries the movie Hamnet, and at least the emotional heft of a lot of the scenes. Stellan Skarsgård is one who I am really, at this point, I think is going to take it away, although I'll be curious if the passion for one battle after another ends up leading to Sean Penn sort of slipping in unexpectedly. So we'll see about that. We didn't even talk about Tiana Taylor. She plays Leonardo DiCaprio's girlfriend at the start of the movie. And I think she is, again, nearing a lock for Best Supporting Actress. And yet, I mentioned that movie Weapons and Amy Madigan. She just won an award, I believe, a couple days ago that was unexpected for supporting actress. And so that's another one that'll be an interesting one to keep our eye on. Best Adapted Screenplay and Original Screenplay, I'm just going right down the middle with the movies that seem to be the most popular of One Battle After Another and Sinners. K-Pop Demon Hunters is about as big of a lock as there is out there with animated film. And then as of right now, I'm thinking Sentimental Value over The Secret Agent for Best International Film. So those are my initial, I promise to send out my final picks, everything, if you're interested in that. But for the major awards, this is where the state of the race is today. So I'll flip back to our Best Picture nominees and would be very open to taking questions from anyone. Yes, Bob. Oh, stewing. So yeah, Paul Mescal, who plays, although he's not named in the film, interestingly, so he plays Shakespeare in the movie Hamnet, was nominated for the SAG Awards, but did not receive a nomination for the Oscars. I don't know if that had to do with the category fraud, as I was talking about. I don't know if there was, again, a little resentment that he was a clear leading role, submitting himself for supporting actor or whatever was going on there. But that's fair. Yeah, Hamnet is one of those movies that it's hard to walk away from that movie with a dry eye. It's a powerful one for sure. Yes. How important is being due? Yes, it is absolutely important, and yet it didn't work out for Demi Moore last year. So it's funny. It's narratives around awards, ultimately these are subjective awards that when there is sort of this runaway narrative that builds, you do tend to make these assumptions that, oh, they're a lock. And yet we've seen that's not always the case. And so no matter, someone being quote unquote due doesn't always pan out. And yet, I think back to Christopher Nolan to me as like the jump out example of like someone who the Academy had pretty much summarily ignored for most of his career. Going into that Oscars, it felt like Oppenheimer was going to sweep every single award, and it more or less did for a lot of the major things. That was one of those he's due narratives. And so, yeah, I would say it is a powerful thing to have someone be quote unquote due. But then, like Ryan Coogler, you could make such a similar case for him with Sinners. So it's an interesting question. Yes.
I noted in watching the DiCaprio movie just how much Sean Penn resembles Greg Bovino. I mean, they are so alike in their physical presence and the kind of role that involves. And I was thinking, what a powerful acceptance speech it would make for Penn to get up and receive the Oscar for playing the guy who just got fired from.
Well, it's funny because when this movie would have been produced, I don't know how many people knew about Greg Bovino. I mean, it's kind of interesting. He does look like he's right out of central casting for sure.
But the Academy voters who have just voted in the last few weeks, when Bovino was in the headlines almost every day.
And the timing of voting and things going on in the wider, I mean, that absolutely plays into a lot of people's ultimate votes. So that's a great point, Ron. Something to watch for on Oscar night, absolutely. Yes?
Matt, how important do you think it is that winners in recent years, last year particularly, be relevant to issues of our times? I'm thinking of Sinners, for example, which is about racism, deeply about racism, and the vampires are really metaphors.
Absolutely, they are. Yes.
Racist, white supremacists.
Absolutely.
Last year, Nora with the drug component. One battle after another was saying.
Yeah, I mean, if I were a voter, I generally I like a Best Picture to have a point of view or kind of intersection with the real world. Having said that, I look up here, you could make that same case for many of these movies. I mean, you don't really have to strain to draw connections to One a Battle After Another or Sinners. There are strained connections with others, but you look at The Secret Agent, you can make connections there. Begonia and this preponderance of conspiracy theories and how they've addled our brains. You can find connections in a lot of these movies to things going on in our wider culture. So to me, I always do prefer to have a movie have something to say that's potent and powerful. But we've also seen movie like I'm thinking back to like Coda is a good example of a movie that was very small and specific to a specific community, and yet was still kind of a beautiful film in its own way. So I don't know. That's not really an answer, but that would be my response.
But along those lines, I think it's a reason that Hamnet, much as I absolutely love the movie, will not win Best Picture.
Probably not. I mean, yeah, I think its award is going to come from rewarding Jessie Buckley's performance. And sometimes that does happen with movies as well, where it just gets so associated with one particular thing that ends up being the movie's reward, I guess. But yes. Sorry, should I be mindful of something, Nancy?
Well, I think it's time.
It's close? Okay. Oh, okay. All right. I'll take that in the kindest way. Yes, absolutely. No, I appreciate that. Well, thank you. Well, I will just close all of this by saying I really appreciate the chance to do something outside of the realm of Bible study. Thank you for indulging me with this other passion that I have. I hope you learned a little something. Ultimately, what I hope the most is that you found a movie or two that has kind of intrigued you and that you go home and watch it. And even if you don't love it, I love the experience of going to movies that have a lot of intention and thought behind them and to be stretched and challenged in new ways. And to me, that's the beauty of this. I don't think I've ever gone and liked all of the nominees, but to me, that's not the important part. It's just the experience of going and immersing yourself in this creative vision. I love it. I'm glad to have you all here and sharing in that passion as well. So thank you very much.